Welcome to the Illuminate Your Essence podcast, where we cut through the distractions, programs, and stories that have created chaos in your life and discover the truth, bliss, and joy that exists beyond the external clutter and resides within. Welcome, my friends. Wendy Bunnell here with Illuminate Your Essence podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a subject we all know very well, and that is the one of suffering. We will avoid, distract, numb, do whatever we can in order to avoid it in our life. But the end result is we do have suffering in this world, right? But I want you to understand, as we dissect this subject of suffering, that it is something within our control, and we can have challenges in this world. But suffering is a choice. Many of the challenges that are presented in our life are not a choice. When we lose a loved one, when we have a child that perhaps is doing things that are causing them a lot of pain and grief and suffering themselves, those are things we don't have any choice. But we do have a choice in whether we suffer or not, and most of which are within our stories. The stories that we create for every experience that we have in this lifetime. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, why we make them, how we make them, how we can become that observer instead of the participant. And honestly, what's really fascinating, as you get more and more in depth and proficient at dissecting your stories and dismantling and untangling the mess that we all have created our whole lifetime, you'll start to see it's easier and easier to understand that you just made that up. You just made that story up. And so stepping out of the suffering becomes so much easier because you are the observer instead of the participant right there in the mix, in the middle of the shit that we've created in our life, right? So, the first thing that we need to understand is how experiences are supposed to flow. When we have an experience in our life, we oftentimes will feel emotions go through our bodies, helping us to understand that experience. We have all five senses that help us establish an understanding of this world. That experience comes through us, and we choose out of the millions of stimuli what we're going to hone in on. When that comes through us and we experience it, we oftentimes attach a story to it so that we can analyze it, we understand it. Many of those stories are predicated on the stories that we originally formed in the very beginning, as we were young, as we were children. And so those stories build upon each other, right? What we truly should do, and this is what other forms and species do, the experience goes through, they feel the emotional response. If it's fear, sometimes you'll see an animal actually shake right after. They feel that fear, and then they get up, they move along, and they go, on their next quest for their next meal. However, with humans, we have that prefrontal cortex that analyzes and studies things. So when an experience comes through and we decide to hold on to that experience, that stimuli, and then we start to attach a meaning, which also promotes an emotional response. If we allow that emotion to flow through us, we can just move on to the next experience. We hold on to the understanding. We hold on to the education behind it and the learning, but we don't hold on to the story, and we don't hold on to that emotional response. But for most of us, we do. We don't know any different. And so that is the experience that we have. So with the past experiences and the past stories, oftentimes you're going to hear people have great success with modalities such as EMDR or AIT or hypnotherapy. And the reason why it's so effective is they're going back to those stories, dismantling them, feeling the emotions that they felt during that time, and restructuring the story. So let's fast forward to the present. Okay. So the present stories that we have are things like, I'm going to give you an example. And it was really fascinating to me because 10 years ago, I'm going to tell you in the story what I would have done. And then I will fast forward to that same experience now that I've become a better observer. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not a great observer in every moment, in every facet of my life, because there are things that I'm more passionate about, things I'm more emotionally charged with, just like you. So I'm sitting there after a big party at my house. Everybody leaves without cleaning up, because unfortunately, that's sometimes what happens, right? And that's okay. They had their own story. They had their own things that they needed to get to. But here I am left with a heaping full sink of dishes. And I observe in my room that I have two others that could help me, but they're sitting on the couch watching TV. In that moment, I have the ability to attach a story or to just simply speak what I need. And oftentimes what we do is we self-betray. I did this for years and years and years and years, where I would attach a story to something, feel sorry for myself, feel victimized, and then fall into that suffering pattern that I had established very well for so many years in my life. So here I am with a heaping full of dishes. And now my story comes back up to me that I designed many years ago, that look at them, they're sitting there, they don't respect me, they don't love me, they take advantage of me so that they can get out of responsibilities. And here I am having to do everything once again. That's my story. Okay. And I can stay in that story. And if I choose to, such as I would have a decade ago, I would have felt sorry for myself. I would have felt victimized. I would have felt self-betrayal. I would have felt a lot of anger, a lot of anger. I'm still processing some of that anger because you see that emotional response, if we have it and we don't let the emotion flow through us, we just kind of store it away for later. And until we have the courage to actually feel it, it just stays there. So my choice in that moment is to feel a lot of anger and a lot of victimization, or I can use my voice if I want to and say, hey, I would love it if you would come over here and help me with this. There's a lot of dishes here. Let's do this together, right? Could use that because if I feel like I need more help, I can say that. Now my story's ended. I'm not a victim. I can have help. Or I can also decide to just simply enjoy the process of dishes. I have learned that any experience can be really this ethereal experience if I choose that. And so I can put my AirPods on, put on some of my favorite music, get the bubbles going and feel the soapy water, see this dish that goes from dirty to miraculously clean, get satisfaction from that. I can choose that too. I can also choose by saying, hey, I would love to have you come over here and help me. If they say, you know what, I'm so tired, I really am not feeling well, or whatever it is, then I can hear their experience. Oh, you know what, you're not feeling good. That's why you're sitting there. Now my story has changed. All right, I'll take one for the team. They're not doing well right now. I have days where I'm not doing well either. And I have compassion, I have love. Do you see the difference in the story too? One is leaning into fear and restricting my heart, constricting my heart, and saying, oh, this is all an attack on me. Or I can open my heart, find the understanding, and choose to have a different experience. One is going to put me in suffering, and one is going to put me in a place of actually flow. We do this all the time, do we not? We attach meaning all the time. It could be a look that we get from someone. It could be someone simply not even talking to us. Maybe we go into a store and we see a friend and we think they caught our eye, but they don't say anything and they don't say hi. And then we attach a meaning, we attach a story. Oh my gosh, they don't like us. Oh my gosh, maybe I did something that made them mad. It's absurd if you really think about it. Like it's literally madness, but we do it all the time. Instead of allowing that story to seep in and have the suffering, we can either go and talk to that person and find out, or we can simply just detach from the experience and just say, I saw them. I didn't have the ability to talk to them. And that is it. There's no meaning, nothing attached to it. We also do it with the future. We do it all the time. We start to consider what could happen. What could happen in the future? And we worry and we stew and we get stuck in that story. As I am moving towards an old career that was very lucrative for me into this new place where I'm creating and doing something that my heart is leading to me, there is so much unknown. And in that unknown, my brain wants to come up with lots of stories. What if you can't make your bills? What if you lose your friends because you do these things? What if your family rejects you? What if? I had a mentor that taught me to use the what if technique in that would be in favor of me instead of against me. So it's, what if I make more money than I did before? What if I have so much more freedom and time available for my loved ones and the things that I love to do? What if? Try that on and see if that works for you. It really does work for me. But the other thing that what I experience is, as I'm creating these stories in my head about what if I lose my house? What if I lose my cars? I mean, it's absurd. Think about this. It is literally absurd when you look back and you are the observer. You're like, oh my gosh, I am such a great creator in storytelling. And then we look at it and we go, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. Because you will have an emotional charge as I'm creating this story of losing everything. I start to have that fear that creeps into my heart, and I feel it right in my heart space. I feel it in my gut. My gut starts to tell me, hey, what you're thinking isn't being digested very well. And so, check in with what's going on. Think about the stories that you're creating right now. So I go back to the story and go, okay, what am I creating? Is that truth? Is that truth? 9 out of 10 times, no, it is not truth. And so I ask, what is a better thought than that? What is a better emotion than what I am thinking and what I am feeling? Because that is not truth. So now let's get into the heart. We're going to get out of fear, right? That constricting feeling, that closed in, boxed in feeling. And I'm going to open up my heart and experience something different. And I dismantle that story. And sometimes I'll even laugh out loud and go, interesting that I would create that story. I can create a different story, or I can stay present in this moment right now and not create any story, and allow myself to be observant with what is happening right now and get that peace, that joy, that love that I want more of instead of the suffering. Now, we can get so good at this that we start creating stories for other people, and we start worrying, right? Worrying for other people, especially our children and our loved ones and our spouse. And we get so good at it that oftentimes we think that's just part of the experience of being a parent, being someone who loves another person. But I want you to understand the context of worry. Worry basically says, I don't trust you can do this. I don't trust that you have the ability to get through the situation that you're going through and have the resiliency, have the skill set in order to get through it. Therefore, I will worry and I will come up with all sorts of ideas of how you can get through that, because you can't do it on your own. I'm going to have to do it because I'm such a master storyteller that I'm going to come up with stories for you too. Can you feel that? It is not one of love. It is not one of compassion, but we can change that story and we can start to see things differently and go, oh, okay, I'm creating a story around your life. It's none of my business what your life is. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to love you. I'm going to become your greatest advocate, your biggest cheerleader, and I'm going to stand from the sidelines. And if you fall, you fall. Whatever, we all fall. Human life, we have opportunities for failing. There really isn't such a thing as failing, but we have opportunities for growth. We have opportunities to develop new skills. And part of that is doing things not in the manner that we had in alignment with the stories, with the vision that we had created. It could come up in a different way. So are you starting to see a pattern with our suffering? When we observe the stories that we're creating, some of the stories from the past are so deep and so ingrained, they may be difficult to untangle without a little bit of help. I have found that EMDR practice in therapy, you can go to a traditional therapist that has the skill set and the training for EMDR. It uses eye movement in order to desensitize and reprogram those stories. That's what it is called. Then there's also hypnotherapy, which is a beautiful modality as well. Again, getting into the subconscious and rewriting the stories. There's energy work. There are so many different modalities that can help you. Sometimes it is really great to have that assistance to be able to step out of that. But in moving forward, learning to be the observer instead of the participant is going to be a really beautiful key in getting out of the suffering. As the emotion comes up, be brave enough to feel it. Most of the time, emotional responses only last about 90 seconds if we will really truly feel them in all of its emotional capacity. And then we allow it to move through us. Much of the time I use breathing in order to do that. I use the breath in order for me to feel it and allow it to move through me. And there we have it. We're done. Next experience, we're ready for you. And then as we are looking towards the future, starting to notice when we're forming a story about what could happen, what might happen, and then choosing to step out of that and be in the present, be in the now. I hope that was a helpful discussion. It is for me, and it has transformed my life to the point where I really, truly experience more joy, peace, and love than in the suffering. I'm human. I still suffer sometimes, and it's a choice that I make. It's a choice that you make. For now, I want you to just be the observer. Until next time, I hope that this discussion can add meaning and value to your life. And I can't wait to get together with you again on the next podcast episode of Illuminate Your Essence. Take care, my friends. Thank you for listening. I invite you to continue the dialogue, the discovery, and the deep dive on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also on my website. Feel free to download your free copy of the 5 Steps to Discovering Your Inner Voice and begin your journey of discovering the truth within today.